Greetings, fellow treasure hunters. Jacob Wile here,
And Tiki.
and welcome to Discovering DuckTales. In anticipation of the upcoming reboot, we here at So You Want to Be an Imagineer are dusting off the original classic series in this brand new vlog. It's not ponytails or cottontails, no. It's DuckTales. Woohoo!
Woo-hoo.
And tonight we have the premiere, Treasure of the Golden Suns.
That's right, Jacob. I am so excited about this. New year, folks. New vlog. Unfortunately, Jacob, as much as I love doing Wandering Over Yonder, we're going to put that on hiatus for now. It's kind of going to go back on our library of shows we're covering because, gosh darn it, everyone's got DuckTales fever. I honestly really like the cast that was released. Like Jeff Bennett is Scrooge, and I'm sorry, Jeff Bennett is Launchpad, and David Tennant is Scrooge in particular really stand out to me. I'm feeling good things about this new DuckTales series. I really am. And so, Jacob, we are here to break down each. What? Go ahead.
Yeah. I said the funny thing is, for a while, a lot of people were kind of hesitant about who they were going to replace Alan Young with. And then everybody went nuts when it turned out to be David Tennant.
David Tennant, Dragon even went nuts, and he doesn't even care about DuckTales at all, I don't think so. Okay, so, Jacob, I'm really excited, and just to kind of set the tone for this, what we're going to do, we're going to go through each and every episode of DuckTales in order. 100 episodes total, am I right, Jacob?
All 100 episodes.
And of course, to make it a little bit more speedy, because it's kind of like we're hoping against hope to get this all done before the reboot starts, but if not, it won't be the end of the world or anything. And of course, we don't even have a release date yet. I think that's what a lot of people are waiting for, is for all we know is 2017. That's what they keep showing. So, as I said, I said earlier that basically, if they release it in late 2017, we should have a good shot. But if they release it in like the first half of 2017, well, then maybe we'll aim to cover about half of the original run of the show before the new reboot sets in. But regardless, Jacob, we ended Wandering Over Yonder with The Quest of Unfathomable Difficulty and The Void, which were two of the best episodes of that particular series. I feel like that was a very strong high note to end off on in that series going in. Of course, we'll be returning to that, I don't know, we'll try and find a way to work it in, but that might have to be put on the shelf for most of 2017, potentially. And we might have to return to that next year. We'll work out the semantics of it all later, but regardless, folks, like I said, every episode of DuckTales. So let's get started, Jacob. Tonight we are covering the treasure of the golden. What is it? Suns. Thank you. Oh my God, I do not have it together. So, Jacob, imagine being a kid in September of 1987, sitting down to your television, watching the Disney Channel, and seeing this, like seeing the 2-hour movie split up into these 5 episodes. Oh my God, like I am jealous of 80 kids because of this. It is so good. Jacob, this holds up so well.
It's one of the rarities of the 80s where a show actually managed to be timeless even to this day.
I'm just like, wow, this feels like, it doesn't just feel like a good cartoon. It feels legitimately like classic Disney, like I'm watching something out of the 30s or 40s or something like that.
All thanks to its, kind of like it's in Indiana Jones, the pulp storytelling, timeless storytelling.
Yeah, let's get into that. Let's touch on the big, the snake in the room, if you will. Snakes? I hate snakes. Oh, wait. That's that other guy.
No, wait, that's someone else. I kind of actually like snakes.
Oh, God. Oh, Launchpad love. Yeah, but let's address it, Jacob. Let's address kind of the Indiana Jones influence and kind of how it's literally like a snake eating its own tail in a way. So, Jacob, you want to take us through the Boulder story?
You can kind of see the influence of Indiana Jones in the logo title.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's pretty much the same font. But Jacob, Renowitz with the story of the boulder, how that boulder thing came about.
Well, the funny thing is, I'm sure all you are aware of the iconic opening of Raiders of the Lost Ark, how Indy trips a wire and sends a giant boulder chasing after him. The funny story is, both George Lucas and Steven Spielberg have admitted that actually came from an old Scrooge McDuck comic book.
I love it. And Scrooge McDuck and Donald Duck both were pretty major comic book stars for Disney. I mean, we're talking this was before Marvel or anything like that. They were essentially adventure serials. Scrooge probably leaned a little bit more on the adventure side of things, whereas Donald Duck probably leaned a little bit more towards the slapsticky side of things. But they were both really successful and well done for their day, and are still regarded, Jacob, as kind of like golden standards for especially kind of like cartoony comic books, you know what I mean? And cartoony like comics in general. It really was kind of an unsung part of the big Disney history, and why these characters are still so remembered to this day, especially a character like Scrooge McDuck,
Whose primary medium for a time was comics.
Exactly.
I mean, like, outside of superheroes, they were the most widely published comics in the world.
It's crazy to think about like that, right?
Which is pretty funny, considering it's a tale about a very abrasive, greedy duck.
Okay, and also, Jacob, let's just kind of set the stage for me and how I got into this series. Jacob, you want to kind of briefly run down your experience with it? Because I know mine is a little bit more involved.
Now, by the time I was even born, the show had been over for about 4 years. Like, ended in like 1990, I believe.
And keep in mind, that's the year I was born, so I didn't see any of the initial run myself either.
It ended years before I was even born. Like, I think Darkwing Duck had even ended before I was born.
Probably, yeah.
or at least it was like I was very young before that time I was even conscious. But that I was born way after this series had even ended. But I said, remember the channel known as Toon Disney?
Oh yeah.
Where they would air reruns of old and new cartoons, and this was among them. That was my introduction.
Do you remember when you watched them, if they were like in sequence and in order, like they would air old episodes of Dragon Ball Z on Toonami in order, or what?
So I can't really remember the exact order. Yeah. I mean, like, not a lot of. I mean, like, other than the arc episodes, I don't think there's really a specific order to them. But
well, I mean, I'm just kind of going based on the official like airing order, of course, but
I don't really remember that much. I just remember catching these episodes when they were on and always enjoying the strange pulp adventures that these ducks went on.
Well, I kind of want to make a mission statement for this vlog going forward, in terms of I am very curious to see how this series holds up, like, you know, from beginning to middle to, like, I'm not expecting a Gravity Falls style, like, oh, it's a massive story arc and there's tons of character development and but, you know, there are certain characters that get introduced throughout the course of the show. There's certain characters that get more development as the show goes on. There's, of course, villains that come back and reoccur. So I definitely think there's fun arcs to explore within this series, Jacob, that I kind of definitely want to hit on as we go episode through episode through all these. And that's kind of one of the things I'm really excited about, and one of the things that got me really stoked about the idea of doing a vlog of this show. And Jacob, my experience with the show, I remember the theme song more than anything else, honestly, from when I was a kid, like everyone else, of course. I remember, I don't really have much memory of watching it, except for, honestly, all my experience with this show wasn't really on TV. It was on home video, where I remember I would probably like rent. Oh, no, you know what? My big experience with this show, Jacob, was the movie. That and Rescuers Down Under were like among some of my favorite movies to watch as a kid. I have both of those on VHS. I mentioned Rescuers Down Under because it has a very similar tone to DuckTales. You know, kind of like very adventure serial type tone. And
I mean, that just proves that Disney should do more animated movie series like this.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Jacob, I'm very excited to talk about Treasure of the Lost Lamp because that is a movie that I feel like first of all, it got so overshadowed by the fact that there's going to be a much more memorable, lovable genie character in a year or two that it's just kind of funny and ironic and sad that they try and build up this memorable, lovable genie character in Treasure of the Lost Lamp. Not saying that character's bad or anything like that. Just saying, it clearly got overshadowed. The whole premise was overshadowed. But you know what, Jacob? Much like Rescuers Down Under, Treasure of the Lost Lamp had an incredibly good villain that no one ever talks about. Christopher freaking
Lloyd.
Yeah, Christopher. I'm sorry. I was going to say Christopher Lee, and I was like, wait, that's not right. Yeah, Christopher Lloyd, man. Oh my God. Oh, he's so good in that movie. I can't wait to dig into that. But Jacob, that's all the intro out of the way. Let's talk about Treasure of the Golden Suns, starting kind of episode by episode, going through it as quickly as we possibly can. Let's start with. I'll close this and. Too much of a goal. Wait, is that right? No. Nah. I'm sorry. This is all... What's the first one? Don't give up the ship. Okay.
Yes.
So first of all, that's not the most catchy title in the world for the first episode of the show.
Especially considering it's a line in the episode.
Right. I don't generally think the episode titles in DuckTales are anything to write home about. They're very punny, but whatever. That's just nitpicking. So this episode is definitely a good, solid setup for the dynamic between Scrooge and his nephews. That's most of what we see through this episode. At first, Scrooge is very unlikable, I gotta say.
It's actually pretty close to how he is in the original comics, actually.
Mm-hmm. Like, he's
more
just...
braced.
Like, the episode literally opens with Scrooge just going on about his day, like, denying everyone money and nitpicking all these little cost expenses and everything.
Pretty much. and even taking money out of a payphone.
Yeah, right.
It's like, you don't have enough money already. You have to take money out of a payphone.
Okay, so we get a brief cameo by Donald Duck, who's going to show up in the middle of this arc. And I must say, I really love Donald Duck in episode 3, but we'll get there when we get there. So Donald Duck is dropping Hugh doing Louie.
That's actually one thing I'll say about this. I mean, like, I actually wish Donald would appear more in this. I mean, their dynamic in that one scene alone, and their dynamic in the third episode was great.
I can't wait to see. We'll get into it, Jacob. But I'm sorry. Do you want to just bounce around a little bit more?
I mean, like I said, we can keep this free flowing as possible.
Okay, let's do that. So, okay, I'm sorry. Let me just go back to the logo. So one of the things I really love about episode 3 in particular, and folks, I closed the logo. Hold on.
It's not necessary.
Okay, well, there it is. Okay, Jacob, one of the things, probably the best thing about this whole episode arc, the whole 5-parter, Launchpad and Donald. How awesome was that?
Yeah, it's getting worse. I can understand what he's saying.
It's like, I love the camaraderie that those two quickly develop as that episode goes on, where at first they're very at odds with each other. Like, Launchpad can't understand a word of what Donald's saying, and Donald's very annoyed and kind of insulted by that. And then as the episode goes on, it's like, I love how genuinely concerned Donald is about Launchpad as Launchpad is flying with the eagle. He's like, or the condor or whatever. I'm sorry, folks. I watched all these episodes kind of in a row, all one after the other, which is how it's meant to be experienced, but it's all bleeding into each other. But Donald's just like, oh no, poor Launchpad, I gotta do something. And it's like, that just goes to show that Donald Duck is a good he's a good military man. And of course, Donald Duck going into the Navy is much like Donald Duck going into the Army. It's very much calling back to that whole thing, which I think is a really cool element of this show. I honestly hope that's a part of the new series as well as Donald Duck's kind of military experience. But because at this point, at this point, I think it's kind of like a built-in canon part of its character that I think Disney should respect. But go ahead, Jacob. I'm sorry.
I think it's kind of funny that they bid these episodes without really relying on his anger too much.
No, exactly. It's like there's one or two jokes, but it's mostly just kind of character driven to see how he's bouncing off of the other characters.
Like I said, that's like his dynamic between like his conversation and dynamic with Scrooge when it's on the dock, and then the dynamics. That makes me kind of want to see more in this series. I mean, I wish he was in it more, but I know the main focus is Scrooge and the nephews. I know that's why he really wasn't in the series that much.
Yeah, but that's one of the reasons I'm really excited for the reboot, though, because I think Scrooge and Donald are going to be basically like the co-stars of the reboot.
I mean, that's really unconfirmed. It's really unconfirmed as of now, but I'm here's to hoping.
I'm speculating that that's going to be what it is. I guess. I mean, I don't know.
I mean, he's featured in all the major arcs so far, so.
That's what I'm saying. And not in a very prominent way, like next to Scrooge. Like, hey, these two are going to be bouncing off of each other. Whew, I'm sorry, Jacob. I'm kind of like struggling with these 5 episodes talking about them all at once because I have things I want to say about all of them, but I don't necessarily want to go through them like beat by beat. Of course, I don't want to do that at all. But help me out here. Guide the conversation a little bit.
All right. Well. So, what do you think about the whole chocolate factory at the end? Like, how Glomgold about the whole thing?
Well, I love how Scrooge owns a chocolate factory. That makes him like 10 times more awesome in my book.
It's like probably hard pressed to find something in Duckburg that he doesn't own.
Yeah, but I love that's just a whimsical idea, though. I do like the chocolate factory in general. I like the whole conceit of the mat being in the hardened chocolate. That was a good plot twist.
In Glomgold. What do you think of Glomgold in this series?
Glomgold. That's the rival duck, right?
Yes.
I love him. He's one of my favorite antagonists.
The funny thing is though that in the original comics he's actually a South African duck. Like he resides in South Africa. That's his home. But due to apartheid going on at the time, they wanted to avoid controversy, so they made him Scottish.
That's probably a good call too, full, because it definitely avoids controversy for sure. And also I just think,
makes him a better a mirror image of Scrooge almost.
which is wonderful. And he's a great villain because of that they play around a lot with that dynamic as the show goes on. Again, one of the things I kind of want to pay attention to as we go through these episodes. Like I said, I'm not expecting like, oh my god, it's such a complex arc, oh my god, but it's still kind of fun to track.
Now let's talk about the big. Now, should we talk about the big bad of this arc?
Oh my god, El Capitan!
Gold. I need my gold.
He's like one step away from being Gollum.
He basically is Gollum.
El Capitan is fantastic. He's like the main reason to sit down and watch all these episodes in a row. Of course, he kind of he goes away for episodes 3 and 4, right?
Pretty much. I mean, well, mainly 4. I mean, actually, I don't think he appears in 3 at all.
Yeah, I don't think he appears in 3 either.
I think he just briefly appears at the end of 4.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you're right. He kind of has that cliffhanger at the end. Yeah. No, El Capitan is. I mean, just Jim Cummings is just.
Although technically, I think in a flashback, he's the captain that's sailing away and abandoning those 2 people. I think that's him.
Yeah, okay. It doesn't matter the semantics of it. We see him in the first 2 episodes.
He doesn't have any speaking lines, though.
Yeah. Well, we see him in the first 2 episodes. He's very built up, and then he has a wonderful payoff at the end of this whole thing with the last episode. So I think he's in enough of it to be called the main villain for sure. and he's wonderful.
He's definitely the big bad of the arc, and like the Beagle Boys, Glom Gold, and those others are just like his assistants. I mean, the Glom Gold like is kind of funny. Like one of Scrooge's main antagonists first appeared as an accessory antagonist.
That's very true. That's very true.
And technically, both of them, like the Beagle Boys and Glom Gold, were both prominent antagonists, and they appeared as accessories to the first ones.
Yeah, and to tell you the truth, I'm not that well versed in how they are in the comics. But the Beagle Boys definitely. What?
It's me neither. I just know that basic fact about Glom Gold.
Yeah. No, you're right. Glom Gold. It's interesting because he becomes more of a major antagonist as the series goes on, I think. But with the Beagle Boys, from my recollection, they're pretty much always, and it's kind of a running gag where, you know, the villains break them out of prison, but they have to go retrieve something from Scrooge. So the Beagle Boys are probably my least favorite of the DuckTales villains for that reason. I think they get kind of repetitive.
Well, they're good plot devices.
But that's what they are, a plot device. They don't really have that much personality outside of just like, you know, cartoon thug. But I mean, I'm just saying, like, we'll get to Magica Dispel a little later on. She's not in this series. She's not in this 5-part arc, but she's in episode 6. Again, it's great that we have this 5-part arc, and then we're introduced to arguably the most memorable DuckTales of all in Magica Dispel, the episode afterwards, which is great. That's like a really good pacing for the show.
Indeed.
All right. So you want to talk about the weak point of this whole arc, which is episode 4?
Yep. If you must.
Oh, God. I'm sorry, folks. I think 4 out of the 5 of these episodes really hold up. But part 4, Cold Duck, oh, man. I mean, look, there's a couple fun parts in it. Like, I really like the giant walrus that melts out of the ice cap and starts chasing them. Like, that's a fun set piece. You know what I mean? That's a creative set piece. But, oh, God. This is why Webby is regarded as the weak point in this show, Jacob. I swear to God, this is going to be a reoccurring problem as we go through these episodes. Oh, my God. Let's just say, folks, Skittles does not hold up. Skittles, the adorable British, for some reason, even though it's Antarctica penguin. Oh, man.
Yeah, that didn't really, like I said, this episode really doesn't make a lot of sense.
You know what I do like about the episode, though? I do like the whole conceit of, like, they're obsessed with color because in the Antarctic there's a lack of color. I thought that was a good, like I said, there's certain bits and pieces of the episode that work really well, and then other, like, mostly with Skittles. I wonder if Disney had a cross promotion with Skittles in this episode. Oh, man.
Skittles and Finding Colors, yeah. If I don't
know. Exactly. Taste the rainbow, right? I could just picture like an 80s commercial airing during a commercials break for Skittles. Oh my God.
Stealth product placement.
I guess one of the things we can jump around to is kind of the character introductions that we get throughout this thing. First of all, Jacob, I'm sorry. First of all, Jacob, I think one of the unsung heroes of DuckTales, a man that we really need to not worship, but like pay attention to because he's got some really funny one-liners, is Duckworth.
He's like, this will definitely delay dinner.
Duckworth is great, man. I think he's an underrated character. You know, my favorite Duckworth bit is he doesn't even have any lines of dialogue, but it's right after Scrooge makes the deal with oh shit, I'm sorry, I'm struggling with the names here. Makes the deal with makes the deal with Grumble. I'm so sorry. I am bad with names, Jacob. I am really bad with names. It's right after Scrooge makes the deal with Globgold, and Scrooge is just like dancing around with Duckworth, and Duckworth is just like so unenthused about dancing, but he's like putting up with it. It's just all in the animation. That's one of the things that really holds up is the animation too.
Very timeless quality of the animation. Like you can tell they went like the highest quality. I mean, like I think, and that's for the show too. For the time too, this is like one of the highest quality animations there was.
Yeah, absolutely. Like the shading and the lighting is really good. Like I said, the expressions work very well.
Especially for ducks.
Yeah, but like also for other characters, like Duckworth, despite his name, isn't actually a duck. He's one of the few characters that isn't a duck. But you know, in that scene, it's just so well animated where it's like it lasts for like 5 seconds, but you get like, oh dear, Mr. Scrooge is using me for his dance partner again. I guess I better just play along with it.
What I kind of like about Doug was like they could have easily been like the annoyed butler who hates his job, but no, he actually doesn't seem to mind his job.
Yeah, I mean he puts up with it to a certain extent, but yeah, you're right. That's like he doesn't openly complain about it or anything, which I think that's kind of like the endearing part of Duckworth is that he's kind of an everyman of that way, in that way where there's definitely qualities to his job that he must get really annoyed by, but it's part of his job to not outwardly complain about it, and he's good at doing that part of his job.
Yeah, but he knows Scrooge doesn't. He knows Scrooge means well.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know. Really good character, Duckworth. Okay, so let's talk about the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Launchpad McQuack.
If it got wings, I can crash it.
Oh my god, how awesome is Launchpad as a character? Seriously.
So awesome that they brought him back for Darkwing Duck.
Right. You know what I'm surprised? I'm surprised they never had, to my knowledge at least, Launchpad never showed up in Tailspin.
No, I don't think he did.
And wouldn't you think that'd be a perfect place for Launchpad to show up because it's all about like dog fights and stuff like that and planes and
rumor has it the show wouldn't. This is according to like a very rumor. Like it's like basically it's just a baseless rumor, but the show is originally built for Launchpad almost.
I wouldn't be surprised, man. I think Launchpad could carry his own show if they wanted him to. And we'll see how Jeff Bennett does with it. Well, I'm really excited to see Jeff Bennett's take on the character. I'm a little bit worried. It's kind of like I feel like David Tennant is going to reinvent the character more, whereas Jeff Bennett, I feel like it's I'm
and Beck Bennett is like who's Scrooge. So
no. David Tennant. I'm sorry. David Tennant is going to reinvent the character of Scrooge a little bit, I feel. Whereas Jeff Bennett is Launchpad, I feel like is going to stick a little bit more closely to the original voice. I'm sorry.
What?
I'm sorry. It sounded like you were trying to say something.
It's Beck Bennett. It's not Jeff Bennett.
It's not Jeff Bennett?
No.
I totally thought it was Jeff Bennett.
Nope, Beck Bennett. He's a
wow, I'm embarrassed. Wow, that's embarrassing. Oh, Jesus Christ, Jacob. Oh. I totally thought it was Jeff Bennett. Like, beloved 90s character actor Jeff Bennett.
Yeah, it's not him.
Oh, I'm so embarrassed now. I'm sorry, Jacob. I never actually watched that video. I only offhandedly heard about the cast. And I was kind of like, ooh, like Jeff Bennett is playing. Oh God, that's really embarrassing, Jacob. I am so sorry about that.
It's fine. There's no need to be embarrassed.
Beck Bennett. Well, I'll have to see how he does. I think Jeff Bennett is obviously being he's like a veteran of the industry at this point. So would have liked to have heard that guy's take on it, but
I'm sure still he could probably do a good Launchpad.
I just have it. What else has he done?
He's done a lot.
Beck Bennett.
Oh, right now he's famous for SNL.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
He's done several other things.
We'll see how it goes.
A lot of the other actors have been on Saturday Night Live or other comedy troupes and things like that.
Sure. And of course, Tennant is kind of like the big not necessarily the A-lister, but kind of he's like the big draw of the show for sure, I think, in terms of celebrity voices. I'm really excited to see how that
he's
goes.
He's a well-trained Shakespearean actor, Doctor Who, Jessica Jones.
So, like I said, Launchpad, he's just such an easygoing guy, man. There's not really a whole lot to his character. I don't like I honestly watching the show objectively, he's not necessarily the best character because he doesn't really have a whole lot of range to him, but he's so damn likable that it makes up for it. Like he is very one note. Like I feel like a character like Scrooge has a lot more dimension to him, or I don't know, like Launchpad is one note, like I said, but he's incredibly endearing and likable. So I guess that kind of all evens out. I don't know really what I'm expecting from him, but
that's kind of like, and that's probably one reason why they didn't include him in that much of the show. I mean, like he appeared in like select episodes here and there, but he wasn't ever like a major star.
yeah, you know what? That's a good point. That's a good point. I think maybe that's probably why he's beloved so much today as he is, that he didn't really wear out his welcome. He was only in episodes that he was needed. Like we'll get into it, but episode 6, they take a helicopter, but there's no reason for Launchpad to be there because there's already a lot of characters involved, and him being there just to pilot the helicopter would, slow down the story a little bit. So
I think a lot more people remember from Darkwing Duck more than anything else.
Yeah.
I mean, his character is fleshed out quite a bit more there.
I mean, yeah, that's very true, but you got to give credit to DuckTales for introducing him, of course.
Well, yeah, I'm not taking that away from DuckTales.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it's kind of like a half and half thing. I think people remember him from both. But yeah, you're right. In Darkwing Duck, he is more fleshed out. I'll have to go back. I'm honestly more familiar with the run of DuckTales than I am with Darkwing Duck. I've seen more episodes of DuckTales overall, but anyway, so yeah, Launchpad, of course, very likable character, kind of comes in with the whole, of course, is introduced via crash landing. So that's great. I love my favorite part of this. Go ahead.
That's definitely establishes his character well.
Yeah. I'm sorry. My favorite part of this whole 5-episode arc, as I said, is most definitely the dynamic between Launchpad and Donald, which we didn't get enough of, but I hope they kind of play around with that in the new show, potentially, because my God, it's so fun. It's so fun that they go from enemies to friends, and it's like a quick little story arc within the context of this grander story arc, and it only lasts for an episode, but it's so nice to see these two get along so well by the end of it, Okay. Yeah, I honestly go ahead. I'm sorry.
Their dynamic and Scrooge dynamic with Donald's like one reason why I kind of wish that Donald was in more of this series, and makes me hope that he's in more of the reboot.
Well, like I said, they're definitely like using his likeness a lot in the reboot, so I definitely think there's some potential to see him in most of the episodes. I think, again, nothing's confirmed about that, but I definitely think we'll see him as a major player.
Well, if it follows like the comics closer, I mean, he's definitely. I mean, like it definitely looks like they're following the comics a lot closer to than actually this series was.
Sure.
I mean, if you notice, Scrooge is actually in a red trench coat in the new series, like he was in the original comics.
That's true. That's a good point.
And Donald is actually wearing a black sailor suit, like in the comics. And like, it looks like they're following the comics pretty closely in the new series. So,
and the art style.
And Donald accompanied Scrooge on a lot of these adventures.
Sure.
So who knows?
Jacob, one of the things that held up surprisingly well was, I honestly think Mrs. Beakley works pretty okay.
Yeah, I mean, like, someone needs to take care of these nephews, and that'll always hold up.
Yeah, and I think her character has a lot of spunk to her, though. She's got a lot of really good humorous moments.
Yeah, and like how she was like she's able to stand her ground. Like
yeah, exactly. Like, keep in mind, she basically like saves the day at the end of this whole thing.
And even at the end even during episode 4, she's the highlight of that episode. Even
for sure.
I said one thing. Same thing about episode 4 is the beginning and the end.
Yeah, that's very true. It's just the one bad thing about episode 4, the one thing that really doesn't hold up, is the whole like randomly trying to shove the adorable British penguin in there.
But who was never seen again.
Oh God! And don't forget, Jacob. It's not just the random adorable British penguin. It's the adorable penguin who has no friends. So it's sad. Oh man. Oh God.
I mean, when the show tried to force cuteness, it really didn't work.
No, and that's why Webby just doesn't work at all. I'm sorry. As much as I thought Mrs. Beakley held up better than I thought she would, Webby might actually be worse than I was expecting her to be. That's kind of saying something because Webby is definitely the weak link of the show in general.
Yeah, we'll see how it goes from here. I mean, I'm sure I don't know. Like I said, I haven't watched every single episode yet. Strangely enough.
I mean, I have watched most of the episodes, and I can tell you, her character is pretty one note. It's mostly just like, complaining about the boys being mean to her, and then just being cute for the sake of being cute, and it's that's one of the things we're more gonna have to put up with more than anything else as the show goes on. But whatever, we'll endure. We'll endure. Gosh darn it, 80s and 90s shows for your pandering with cuteness.
Yeah.
Okay.
And have we really talked about this character of Scrooge throughout this? I mean, we've talked about everyone else, but now time to talk about the main man himself.
Yeah, I was kind of building him up. Well, first of all, just really quick, let's briefly touch on the nephews. They don't really have a whole lot of character.
They're basically all the same character to begin with.
Yeah, that's another thing with the show that doesn't necessarily hold up at all. It's really hard to they have no defining character traits to tell one apart from the other, Jacob. But worse than that, I don't even necessarily feel like them as a trio has many defining character traits. That's the really bad part of the whole situation. You know what I mean?
I know exactly what you mean. That's another reason why I'm looking forward to the new series.
I mean,
Because
it's just kind of...
If you look at it, they actually have new defining traits and voices.
Right. Again, one of the few things that Quackbat got right.
Few things.
Top
yes.
men.
Listen, they don't really get on my nerve that much. It's like sometimes it's hard to sympathize with. Like
they're just bland.
Scrooge told you not to go, you go anyway. You get in trouble, and you expect him to be happy about it.
Yeah, like I said, they're just bland. I don't think I think Max from Goof Troop, he's not necessarily unlikable either, but I think Max is a little bit more grating than these three are. But like I say, it's just kind of like, for as good as this show is, it's ridiculous that they couldn't rub three characters together to get one good one. It's just kind of a fail on their end, to tell you the truth. But that's one of the things I'm hoping that maybe gets better as the show goes forward, because unlike Webby, I could see potential of them maybe doing some stuff with them. Like, for example, we'll talk about it, but episode 6, we actually have Huey getting separated from the other two, so perhaps, there's a little bit of hope there, I think. Whereas with Webby, it's just, Webby, it's just more of a lost cause, I think. So, but awesome. Yeah, Jacob, now it's time to talk about the main star himself, Mr. Scrooge McDuck. Oh my God, what a good character.
The main duck.
Just
the richest duck in the world.
They do such a good job of making what essentially boils down to, a capitalist asshole into such a likable guy.
He's greedy, not really narcissistic, but
no, he is pretty damn narcissistic, I think.
Well, in some cases, yes, he is. He's greedy, narcissistic, can be abrasive at times, yet he's a completely likable character.
Oh yeah. I don't, it'll be it'll be interesting to see how this character holds up in this particular time, given the given the economic situation and the 1% and everything like that. You know what I mean? I'm curious to see what Disney's going to do with that particular element of his character. Not to get all political or anything.
It's kind of interesting though, like with those kind of character traits. This is usually a character you would not like. I mean, it's kind of like the Tony Stark effect. I mean, like normally this is a character you would not like, but the way he's written and the way he acts, you absolutely fall in love with the guy.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, Scrooge has a really good dynamic that kind of really rounds his character full circle going into the rest of the show. It's a good kind of thesis statement on what his character is going to be like. He's going to be greedy, he's going to be self-centered, but at the end of the day, gosh darn it, he cares about the people in his life, and he will ultimately, give up stuff to protect them, but it'll come, that won't come easy for him. So,
Yeah. And that hat, though, I mean, that hat.
Oh yeah.
I'm just kidding.
I think my favorite moment from Scrooge is the whole money pit moment. Where they find all the gold coins in the cave, and he dives into them, and then Huey, Dewey, and Louie try to, and they can't. How does he do that? Oh my god, that's
years
wonderful.
Of practice. It's most like years of practice.
I also like how throughout the 5 episodes we've kind of like had a build up to him diving into the money at some point. So that was a good payoff.
It's kind of like Chekhov's gun. Like he dove into the first episode, he dove into the last episode.
Right, exactly. Let me see.
It's like one of the most iconic things Scrooge has ever done is dive into his money pits. It's pretty much become a scene that's been burned into mainstream media memory.
Even Teen Titans Go did it.
Coded into pop culture. Scrooge McDuck diving into his money bins.
For sure. I think it's almost kind of like the modern day equivalent of the Monopoly Man in a way. That image. Okay, I think kind of one of the last things to talk about, Jacob, is the climax and the whole gold fever and everything like that, which is really well done.
Indiana Jones, eat your heart out.
Oh yeah. First of all, I love the conceit of the Gold City. I love all the animation and the, those giant like 3-ton gold coins on the mountainsides and stuff like that.
I mean, it's an adventure. It's a globe-trotting adventure with a map built into a ship, going through a desert that's flooded with water to a city of gold where there's molten gold in the bottom. Indiana Jones, eat your heart out.
Yeah, molten gold, like piles of gold dust. I love how the molten gold. I love the climax where the gold gets onto the plane, and so Scrooge gets to take a little bit of it back with him. Like, that's very satisfying. You know what I mean? He doesn't get nearly, he doesn't even really get a big percentage of the gold at all, but he gets to keep a little bit of for himself, and he's probably never going to spend that. It's kind of a shame we never see that gold play again in the series.
He's probably keeping it hidden.
Well, yeah, probably. That's a good point. I don't know.
I mean, yeah, like the ending was like it's surprisingly full of action packed too.
Yeah, it's action packed, but it's also very good character on Scrooge's part, and El Capitan,
and how well he puts he was seen as like a parallel to El Capitan. I mean, like this very well could have happened to Scrooge if he didn't have his family with him.
Yeah, exactly, and it's a great kind of El Capitan gets defeated in a great way, where it's essentially just like, the Gold City just gets buried under miles of dirt, and El Capitan is just digging and digging and digging, and Scrooge is like, "Oh, let him dig for the next 400 years. I've got better things to worry about." I'm sorry, that's my best Alan Young.
Rest in peace.
Yeah, but let's see. Overall, I'm kind of wrapping up on my points here.
And when I first rewatched this, I was kind of expecting El Capitan to fall into the molten gold.
That's exactly what I was expecting too. I was totally expecting him to go out like Gollum, like basically the scene where he's pulling up when they're getting lowered into the molten lava and then he's pulling them up. I was expecting him to just dive into the molten lava like Gollum, like, oh, I'm about to die, but I'm so happy about it because I'm surrounded by gold.
Gold, I'm surrounded by gold.
But yeah, like I say, it's like the character's greed is what did him in, which was really cool.
Yeah, I'm surprised they didn't go the route about them. It's probably good. It's probably not surprising that they couldn't do that though.
I mean, maybe off screen, maybe. I don't know.
Yeah, but they could. I mean, he never appears again, so they could have at least implied his death.
Oh God. Oh, yeah, that's true.
He would have died that way before Frollo did, if you think about it. He could have died Frollo's death.
One quick thing. I think it's funny that the Junior Woodchuck's guidebook is essentially like I wonder if Gravity Falls thought about any of that before they wrote. I don't know. Is there any word about Gravity Falls potentially like the journal and the Junior Woodchuck's guidebook? Because obviously, I think Gravity Falls pulls that whole concept off a lot better of having, this book that's really important to the plot and gives out a lot of advice. But I see a little bit of a parallel between the two.
I think here the book is just more of a MacGuffin, like say, oh, so that's how you do these things.
Yeah, you're right. It's very much a MacGuffin. Like, I definitely think there were times in Gravity Falls where it had it was a good plot device to kind of like reveal information. But yeah, you're right. But okay.
I was referring to DuckTales, but I was mainly referring to it being in
DuckTales.
No,
I know. I'm saying Gravity Falls uses it a lot. But I'm sorry. I'm going off on a little bit of a tangent here.
No, it's fine. No, it's totally fine.
So, Jacob, any final thoughts here?
It started off good and it didn't let up. Well, except for episode 4.
And again, episode 4, it's mostly just like the cutesy penguin stuff that doesn't really hold up. So,
but other than that, this episode this 5 episode long epic holds up really well.
Oh yeah.
And definitely a well-rounded start to one of Disney's greatest series.
Yeah, and I'm really excited to go through this whole thing. Like I said, hopefully we get an actual date on the new show soon, just so we'll know, just so we can kind of like put some expectations on how many episodes we can cover one way or another and have some ground rules on it. Because I don't know, because keep in mind, Jacob, one of the things with this show is that season 1 is basically half the series. Season 1 is over half the series.
When they did the whole 65 episodes thing.
Right, exactly. So, realistically...
But that's also the impressive thing. Most shows only back then, especially for Disney, only lasted 65. This is actually one of the few to actually go to 100 episodes.
Yeah, very true. Very true.
Mainly because of its popularity.
But realistically, like, I would think that we might be able to do the first season maybe before the show comes out. But again, it all depends. I mean, if the show comes out in like March of 2017, we're screwed. So we'll see.
I think they're at least aiming for. I think they're more aiming for a summer release.
Probably that's probably more the case. And keep in mind, we have shows like Milo and Star that hopefully will be coming back from hiatus soon. Hopefully. So we'll see about that.
I mean, and even when the new series starts, we can like run this parallel to it.
That's true.
I mean, like it could be like a good like parallel piece, like see how this holds up to see how this compares to the new episodes.
Yeah, but I do like the idea of going through the whole thing before the new show, but we'll see how it goes. So, Jacob, what's the next episode we'll be covering?
Let me see. It's Send in the Clones.
Yeah, Send in the Clones.
In which we meet Magica Dispel.
Oh yeah, voiced by the great June 4A. Love her.
who's still alive, by the way.
I know. Thank God 2016 didn't touch her. Thank God.
Alan Young, but not.
Exactly.
May he rest in peace.
God. Okay. So yeah, can't wait to talk about that. Magica Dispel, I think, is probably the most memorable villain of DuckTales. So she's great. She's really great. So, all right, Jacob, go ahead and take us out.
Definitely next to Glum. Well, tonight's adventure has come to an end. But be sure to join us in the future, or even the past. Until next time on Discovering DuckTales.
Woo! This is definitely going to delay dinner.